Now, what exactly does next generation mean to you personally? I think we all have our own type of idea of what we expect, okay? And this is more of a new thing for me because coming off the 360 PS3 era, like I didn't really have any expectations going into generations, like from the Dreamcast and the PS2 to the PS3 and the Xbox 360. I didn't really have any kind of expectations per se going into it in terms of, oh, well, this time we're going to get this resolution or this frame rate. Like, I didn't look at games that way. I wasn't really in the know, and pretty much nobody was really talking about that kind of stuff. And, as far as I can tell, it's really more of a thing that's happened over the last generation and a half, where people really kind of focus in on things like frame rate and resolution. And to each person, they're going to have their own type of situation that why they buy the console and what they're looking for. What's up, everybody? Crapgamer here with Crapgamer Reviews, back with another video. Thank you guys so much for checking it out. I appreciate it. Please like, share, subscribe. I would appreciate that as well. It helps out the channel and it means a lot to me personally. And if you guys wouldn't mind, hit the bell. You get notified of everything as soon as it drops. I've been trying some different things, just kind of experimenting, trying to make things a little bit better around here. Again, I'm working on putting together a podcast again, so we'll see how all that kind of stuff pans out, but it couldn't be possible without your support. So thank you so much for supporting me and everything I do. So with that being said, going into next generation, what was the thing that you guys have on the back of your mind as something that you expect from next generation? And most people would probably say frame rate, right? We were kind of in this weird situation while we got, a frame rate resolution boost with the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X. It's just one of those things that, just kind of happened mid-gen. That technology became available, and so the companies used it. The Xbox Series X did a lot of like 4K or resolution boosts and things like that. The PS4 Pro, they were using things like checkerboard technology, so you were getting really good looking games, and they were messing with higher resolutions and things like that. Occasionally we would get the better frame rates, and we would see that come across where we get the option for like a better frame rate for certain games, like Tomb Raider was one. Obviously, like Forza Horizon 4, you had an option to go 1080p 60 frames or 4K 30 frames. Like, giving you the option to do stuff like that was stuff that we never had before on a console, and to see that sort of come about was pretty impressive. And again, one of the cool things about next generation is I think a lot of people had the idea that we would just get 60 frames across the board. Now, I'm not one of those people that gloats or that wants it. I think that we should get 60 frames at least as an option to have on most games, right? But even 16, 18 months ago, I was one on the front line saying, you guys realize that developers have complete say over what they do, and a lot of developers are going to want to go for that graphical finesse, that extra pretty graphics, right? And so basically what happens is they would rather have the graphical fidelity that looks really, really good. And then when we're talking about ray tracing is a big thing for this upcoming generation, but it really tears down the frames rate, right? Like, so our frame rates can't be as high as they normally would without the ray tracing. If the ray tracing is off, then you can get better. Like, are we going to have options for that? Like, it's really kind of unclear. But what's interesting is some of the games that Sony showed off were 30 frames per second. Some of the games that Microsoft showed off the other day or whatever, or what was that, in May, were 30 frames per second. Even like, I think the Minecraft with the ray tracing was like 30 frames per second or whatever. But it's just one of those things where a lot of people have these different expectations on frame rates and what it means, and next generation should all be 60. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be. I'm not the type of person, and I'm on record as saying this, that really cares that much about frame rate. Like, I think racing games and like shooters and things like that should be 60, but I'm not going to sweat something like an open world game if it's only 30, just because it's not like a deal breaker for me personally, but I know to a lot of people it is. Now, what can we get? What can we expect for frame rates coming from the PlayStation 5? Well, we do got some pretty interesting information. We saw Gran Turismo 7 shown off at the event, and you know what? It looks like that game could be up to 240 frames per second. That sounds fantastic to me, and actually unbelievable. Here's the funny part. I don't even think we have TVs that could take advantage of that, so that's going to be the funny part. It's like the greater part of all this is that people keep talking about frame rates, and you can tell we're console gamers because our TVs don't have the necessary capabilities to go up, and a lot of them don't go up to like support the 120 frames per second and stuff like that. So for people that are talking about it like, oh, Gears 5 will be in 120 frames per second, well, I mean, if we have the very rare percentage of people that have a TV, usually it's monitors and stuff that really kind of support those type of frame rates. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. But anyway, consoles have been, makers have been obsessed with resolution, 1080p, 4K, native 4K, true 4K, dynamic 4K. Everything suggests so far that Microsoft and Sony are definitely very interested in frame rate next generation. And Polyphony Digital's, one of the head people there was actually interviewed and was asked a question about how Gran Turismo visuals might improve in the next generation. And he answered by saying, I think display resolution-wise, 4K resolution is enough. I'm more interested in the advancements we can make in terms of the time resolution in terms of frames per second rather than staying at 60 frames. I'm more interested in raising it to 120 or even 240 frames per second. I think that's what's going to be changing the experience from here onward. Technically, the PlayStation 5 is supposed to support 8K, but will likely have at least as much trouble as the PlayStation 4 had running 4K natively, or the PlayStation 4 Pro. Nobody really knows why, I guess there's this outcry of these companies to support frame rates after all these years, but ignoring the issues is a mystery. But it's likely that they both realized that 8K is kind of this thing. It's a buzzword, but who really owns an 8K TV? Anyway, like, honestly, it's going to be interesting. So 240 frames per second is kind of overkill in my opinion. I don't really know, but it's going to be very interesting to see what they can do with this. 60 frames, that's, again, Gran Turismo, the last one, GT Sport, was able to achieve 60 frames or whatever with 4K. So we're going to see possibly 240 frames per second, maybe 120 frames per second. But what do you guys think about that? Because a lot of people were saying that the PS5 wouldn't be able to do 60 frames, wouldn't be able to do 120 frames. Only Xbox could do it. And I'm not taking anything away from that, because Xbox is clearly a really, really powerful machine, more powerful than the PS5 is. Obviously, you got that 16 to 18% more power, but the PS5 is no slouch either. To say that it's a weak console would be a little bit disheartening and kind of a wrong thing to say. I think that it's a very well-rounded console, and the fact that you could maybe get Gran Turismo 7 at launch, maybe pushing 120 to 240 frames per second, would be definitely a killer app or a great feature to really showcase what the new consoles can do. And I have no doubts that Microsoft will want to showcase what they can do as well. Like, Microsoft is no fools. They definitely want to showcase their console, and they definitely want to showcase, Forza Motorsport or whatever it is. I'm sure they're going to showcase that as well and let everybody know that, hey, we've got this racing game and we're able to achieve that. And racing games are really easy, especially like the circuit racers like Motorsport and Gran Turismo, where, we can see a situation with, they're gorgeous games, but they're closed tracks, so they're easier to have a higher frame rate, easier to have a higher resolution as well. So I think that'd be really cool. Like, if they can get Gran Turismo out there at 4K, 120 frames, that would be fantastic. If they can get it out there for, even more than that, even if it's just a buzzword, it really goes to show that, hey, this console can do some pretty significant things, and I really like that aspect of next generation. So hopefully you guys know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that. So it is pretty cool to see that. Gran Turismo 7 sounds like it's going to be really good. I haven't been the biggest Gran Turismo fan my whole life, but I have to say that the new one looked absolutely amazing. It looked aces. It looked incredible, and it would definitely be a showpiece and something that I would pick up day one if it comes out day one with the PlayStation 5, just to have something that really showcases what it can do, frame rate rise and things like that. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. We might all need to be getting new TVs. I know I've already been kind of considering that. If I really wanted to take advantage of next generation, you got to get new TVs. If you buy both consoles, you're looking at what, something along the lines of over $1,000. I mean, probably $1,200 by the time you add tax in for both. It's going to be crazy. And then games or whatever. I know, like, Microsoft has Game Pass, but let's be real, a lot of third parties are also important, which, you know, some of the big stuff isn't going to be in Game Pass. So it's like you still got to buy all this software and stuff, and then possibly a new TV, and, you know, maybe we're in the middle of a recession, and yeah, I don't know. It's crazy, man. I might be having to trade in some old consoles and stuff like that, but man, what an exciting time. That's some exciting technology for sure. Stuff that I thought, you know, would never come to consoles, you know, when you're talking 120 frames or 240 frames per second. Absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely incredible. I will link this article. You guys can check it out for yourselves. Please let me know what you think. Stay safe, happy, healthy. Thank you so much for joining me for another one of my videos. Rack 'em up. Game on. Crapgamer out.
Unscripted.